On December 3, 1860, a group of abolitionists convened a meeting to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the execution of John Brown for the Harper's Ferry raid. The participants included Franklin B. Sanborn, one of the so-called Secret Six who had funded Brown's ill-fated adventure, and Frederick Douglass, who had advised Brown to no avail not to go through with his plan. But as a report, complete with plenty of sarcastic editorializing in the next morning's edition of the Springfield Daily Republican revealed, abolitionists were by no means the only people who showed up. The Union ought to be safe now, for a quote-unquote conservative mob has broken up a meeting of Negroes and abolitionists in Boston. When the news of this great event reaches Charleston, it is to be presumed that the secession movement will collapse at once and the fire eaters everywhere will be pacified. James Redpath, the Englishman who figured largely and not always reputably in Kansas affairs, united with several others in inviting a meeting at Tremont Temple, Boston, on Monday to celebrate the anniversary of the hanging of John Brown and to discuss the question, how shall American slavery be abolished? Mr. Redpath called the meeting to order at 10 in the forenoon, but it was soon evident that the majority had not come together for any orderly purpose. After a scene of much confusion, with cheers for Governor Packer of Pennsylvania, who had denounced the object of the meeting in replying to an invitation to attend it, and others, the quote-unquote conservatives nominated and elected Richard S. Fay of Lynn as chairman. The abolitionists also elected Frank B. Sanborn of Concord chairman, and both gentlemen took the platform and attempted to direct the meeting when a scene of great confusion ensued. There was a rush to the platform, and for a few minutes there was a fair chance for a precious row. But the police succeeded after a time in getting the people quiet when Chairman Fay proceeded to make a speech against the dissolution of the Union, arguing that it would have the effect to prevent the abolition of slavery. He also offered a string of resolutions condemning the sympathizers with John Brown, eulogizing the Union, and declaring finally that Boston will no longer allow irresponsible individuals and political demagogues of every description to hold public meetings to disturb the public peace and misrepresent us abroad. The resolutions were adopted by the mob. Fred Douglass then got the floor and made one of his spicy anti-slavery speeches. Having said something which excited an interruption, the chairman explained, "He only means to say that a Negro slave driver is worse than a white one." Douglass, "That's so, just as a northern doughface is worse than a slaveholder." Tremendous applause from the abolition side. Finding Douglass too sharp for them, the quote-unquote respectable mob stopped him and voted to dissolve the meeting. But the meeting would not stay dissolved, and Mr. Sanborn undertook to exercise his chairmanship. Reverend D.C. Eddy attempted to say a few words in behalf of free speech for all parties, but was interrupted by a free fight near him, which terminated in the police taking Dr. Knox and Mr. Sanborn by force from the platform. Reverend J. Selim Martin, a colored clergyman, attempted to speak but was silenced. Chris Plunkett, an Irishman employed in the Custom House, then moved for a new organization, and J. Murray Howe was declared elected chairman. Howe attempted to take the chair, and there was another melee on the platform, during which Douglass and several other Negroes were pushed from the platform and hustled out of the house. The police then attempted to clear the hall by order of the mayor. Some of the abolitionists refused to go, and Mr. Sanborn was carried out bodily by the police. The process of dispersing the audience went on slowly, however, and Fred Douglass appeared again and tried to speak, as did also Reverend Daniel Foster of Kansas, but without success. The hall was cleared after a while, and Reverend J. Selim Martin gave notice that the meeting would be continued in his church in the evening. This singular demonstration in Boston is of little significance in itself. It only shows that there are several varieties of the genus fool still extant, and there are certainly none more stupid than those who suppose they are contributing to the salvation of the Union by attempting to suppress freedom of speech on any subject. They ought to know, too, by this time, that there is nothing ultraism thrives so fast upon as persecution, and nothing such men as Redpath and his associates court more than the notoriety given them by a row. They are 1,000 times better satisfied than if they'd been allowed to utter their harmless eulogies on John Brown without opposition. I learned of this incident through Thomas H. O'Connor's fascinating book, Lords of the Loom, The Cotton Whigs and the Coming of the Civil War. It makes clear that the South's reaction to Abraham Lincoln's election was causing many Massachusetts industrialists to panic. As early as December 1860, an agonized wail went up from the manufacturing centers throughout the state as North-South trade came to an abrupt halt, and all for what industrialist Nathan Appleton contemptuously referred to as an impracticable idea, a non-entity connected with the institution of slavery. In southern Massachusetts, reports told of hundreds being thrown out of work, and in the western counties, observers predicted that the mills would shut down completely in 90 days. The Courier reported that the Boston streets today are full of discharged workmen as the number of business failures begin to mount up. Some measure of the hysteria gripping Boston may be seen in the frenzied way the popular wrath was turned upon local abolition groups who were blamed for having forced the slavery issue to such a critical and uncompromising state of affairs. I have more about the sometimes surprising twists and turns in relations between New England industrialists, Southerners, and Northern abolitionists in the companion post to this video at my website. Click the link in the description below the video. There's also a link to Antebellum Etc's very first video, which featured a Southern fire eater's eyewitness account of John Brown's hanging. So check that out if you haven't seen it. And help this little channel keep growing. As of this writing, we've blown past the 100 subscriber mark, so thanks everybody. Keep the momentum going by smashing that like button, commenting with your thoughts, and sharing the video with anyone who might be interested. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.